Every day you tell yourself tomorrow will be different. Tonight, you'll sleep by midnight. Then you sit down for a minute, open shorts, and suddenly it's 2:30 a.m. The work is untouched. The alarm is coming, and you lie there, staring at the ceiling, telling yourself, tomorrow I'll fix my habits. I'll stop procrastinating. I'll finally be disciplined. But tomorrow shows up. Same thing. Maybe you're close to 30. You watch old classmates getting promotions, moving in with partners, planning weddings. You're in a low-paying job, scrolling their updates, feeling stuck. Here is the scary truth. If the next 5 years look like the last 5, you're in trouble. And most people never notice that until it's too late. This video is about the cattle drive system. It is not another aesthetic morning routine or a hype speech. It is a system to make one habit almost impossible to break in 30 days. A simple way to build discipline without relying on motivation. A system you can run even when you're tired, stressed, or not in the mood. By the end of this video, I'll give you 3 simple marks to put on a calendar that will quietly rewire how you see yourself. Most people think they need a 15-step routine from TikTok. But in a world this loud, the only thing that works is something brutally simple. Real cattle drives in the West ran on a few rules repeated every day. One herd, one trail. They didn't have dashboards or habit apps. But it wasn't easier. If a drive failed, families went hungry and pay disappeared. Different world, same rule. When the stakes are high, you keep the system simple. Our world is complex. Your system doesn't have to be. In this video, I'll show you how to choose one thing worth driving for 30 days, how to set up your camp so you don't fail, and how to track it so you slowly start to see yourself as someone who doesn't quit. If every challenge you've tried has died by week 2, this is why. After the Civil War, the only way for a rancher to survive was to move thousands of cattle from Texas north to the railheads in Kansas. That was the cattle drive. It wasn't a vacation. It was a 1,000-mile mission to get paid. Groups of cowboys would spend months in the saddle, driving thousands of cattle north with one simple goal: get the herd to the railhead alive. The rules were simple: one herd, one trail, pushing north toward Abilene 10 miles a day. The trail boss wasn't trying to drive 5 different herds to 5 different towns at the same time. He knew if he spread the men too thin, the cattle would wander, get stolen, or die. So they picked one direction and moved the same herd day after day. We do the opposite. We try to fix everything at once. This month, you'll hit the gym, read every day, build a side hustle, fix your sleep, eat clean, quit porn, and somehow stay productive at work. You stack 5 new lives on top of the one you already have. By week 2, it all collapses. Not because you're weak, but because you're trying to drive 5 herds with one tired horse. So in this system, we start with something simpler: a herd and a trail. The herd is the one area of your life that matters most right now, not 10. 1. Ask yourself, if only one area of my life improved in the next year, which one would change everything else? Is it your degree, your income, your body? That is your herd. The trail is the daily action. It must be something you can still do on your worst day when you are tired, stressed, and don't feel like self-improvement at all. If your trail feels too easy, good. That is the point. We are not trying to be heroes. We are trying to survive past week 1. Here is the secret the old trail bosses understood. On real drives, if you pushed cattle too fast, they lost weight. By the time they reached town, they were worth less money. Going fast looked productive, but it quietly killed the result. You have been doing the same thing, sprinting the first week of every new you, then burning out. A system is a boring pace you can actually hold. You don't rise to your goals. you fall to your daily trail. So now you have one herd and one trail. That puts you ahead of most people. But even with the perfect plan, you will lose the drive if your camp is chaos. If your phone is buzzing, your room is a mess, and the world can reach you at any second. You are sabotaging yourself. On the old drives, they cared as much about camp as they did about the miles. That's what we fix next. Out on the trail, the miles weren't the scary part. The nights were. When the herd stopped, everything depended on camp. Wagons in, fires lit, horses tied, bedrolls down in a tight circle, one rider on night watch, moving slow around the herd, listening for the wrong kind of sound. If camp was sloppy, the drive was in danger. Cattle wandered off in the dark. Predators came close. One spooked animal could start a stampede that wiped out weeks of work in 10 minutes. You have a camp too. It just doesn't look like the movies. Your camp might be a fancy Notion dashboard you spent 5 hours building but never actually use. Or it is a desk buried under snacks, empty cups, and 18 open tabs. Discord pings, Instagram DMs, your phone glowing next to your hand at midnight. If your camp is chaos, your habit will die. It doesn't matter how good your 30-day challenge or self-improvement plan is, if your environment is chaos, you can't stay consistent. Chaos wins. For these 30 days, you need 2 things: a clean camp and a storm plan. Camp is your environment around the habit. If your trail is studying, a clean camp looks like this: phone in another room or hard blocked, notes already on the screen when you sit down. If your trail is working out, camp is shoes by the door and clothes laid out before you sleep. You don't decide to train. You wake up and the decision is staring at you. The rule is simple. What's easy gets done. What's buried gets ignored. But even with a clean camp, life will still punch you in the mouth. That's why you need a storm plan. On real drives, they hit rivers, storms, heat, sickness. Some days the herd barely moved, but the job didn't vanish. They still had to keep the cattle together and be ready to move at first light. You're going to have storm days too. Bad sleep, fights, extra shifts, breakup texts, days where full effort is not happening. That's why every trail needs 2 versions. For a study trail, the full version is 25 minutes deep work. The storm version is just 5 minutes of flashcards or quick revision before bed. For a fitness trail, the full version is a 20-minute workout. The storm version is 5 minutes of stretching. For a project, your storm version is writing 1 single paragraph or solving 1 practice problem. That's it. On storm days, the goal is not big progress. The goal is not breaking the chain. Your problem isn't bad days. Your problem is letting bad days become 0 days. The storm plan protects that. It lets you go to sleep and honestly say, even on a bad day, I still showed up. That's how you quietly build discipline and stop falling off every habit after a week. Now you have 1 herd, 1 trail, and a camp that doesn't sabotage you the second you try to change. Your 30-day challenge is already 10 times more likely to survive. But there's one last piece. If you never count the miles, your brain won't believe you've changed. This is where the nightly head count and branding the rider come in. Out on the trail, the day didn't end when the herd stopped. After the fires were lit, 1 job remained: head count. A rider would ride around the herd, counting shapes in the dark. He had to make sure nothing had slipped away while everyone was tired. If you skipped head count, you didn't notice what you'd lost until it was too late. Most of us end our days the opposite way. No head count, just bed. Phone in your face, doom scrolling TikTok or Instagram, anything to avoid thinking about how the day actually went. Then you crash. No review, just another day gone. The third part of this system is simple: a nightly head count and a brand. Head count is 1 minute before you sleep where you ask, "Did I show up today?" Then you draw one of 3 symbols on your calendar. These are the 3 marks I promised you. 1. If you did the full trail, mark a big X. 2. If you did the storm version of your habit, mark a single slash. It counts. The chain lives. 3. If you missed entirely, mark a 0. That's it. No essay, no aesthetic notion page, just X slash or 0. Use a wall calendar or a cheap notebook. Anything that doesn't turn into a second job. Why do we do this? Because your brain lies. It tells you you're failing even when you aren't. The paper tells the truth. When you look at that calendar, you might see a few slashes where life got hard. That is okay. It means you struggled, but you didn't quit. The only goal is to keep the zeros off the page. Zeros are the only thing that kills a drive. After 2 weeks, when you see a long line of marks, something changes. You stop needing willpower. You just keep going because you don't want to ruin the streak. And that's how habits start to feel long-term, not temporary. In the days of the open range, there were no fences. You couldn't contain the herd. So ranchers burned a mark into the hide so anyone could see who the cattle belonged to. The brand wasn't decoration. It was responsibility. It said, "This is mine." Every day you put an X or a slash on that paper, you're putting a mark on your own identity. After 30 days, you're no longer the guy who never finishes anything. You become the writer who doesn't vanish on hard days. If you're watching old classmates move ahead while you feel stuck, this won't magically fix your job or your bank account overnight. You won't rebuild a decade in a month, but you will have proof. Real, visible proof that you are not the same person who wasted the last 5 years hoping life would change on its own. At that point, the system has done its job. It's not motivation keeping you on the trail. It's who you believe you are. The system is built. The map is drawn. The only thing left to do is ride. Here is the whole system in one breath. First, choose one thing you'll work on for the next 30 days and one small action you'll do every day, even when you're tired. Second, make that action easy to start. Clear your space and decide a tiny backup version for bad days. Third, every night, mark on a calendar whether you showed up, full, small, or not at all, and protect that streak for 30 days. Do those 3 things for 30 days, and you've just run your first cattle drive. You clicked on this expecting 30-day habit tips to stop procrastinating. What you got is a system. If you run it honestly for 30 days, this habit will be harder to break than it is to keep. Now, I want you to commit. Go to the comments and start your comment with the words, "My herd for the next 30 days is," and then say what you're focusing on. On the next line, write, "My daily trail is," and then say how many minutes you'll do and what you'll do. Come back in 30 days and reply to that same comment with what actually happened. If you want more Wild West stories and simple systems for discipline, subscribe to Dust and Grit. I'll see you on the trail.